Although the venom of insects evokes our worst memories, often painful and sometimes even provoking allergic reactions, its properties can be beneficial for our health. The Atrax is the most venomous spider in the world. However, some researchers are using its venom for therapeutic purposes.
I found this spider in my backyard and I was just wondering if you knew what kind it was or whether it was dangerous.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, that's actually infected male funnel-web spider, the most deadly spider in the world. That's pretty good. Just be careful with your gardening, and if you catch any more up, we'll love to take them here at the park.
The public are good suppliers of Atrax for the University of Sydney. Spider venom has become a veritable subject of fascination for modern science.
We're interested in the Atrax species of spiders because they produce around about 600 compounds in their venom. So these are, many of which are very toxic to insects. So these compounds can potentially be developed as insecticidal agents because they're highly selective for insect species.
In fact, certain components of the venom act only on the nervous systems of insects. They could be isolated and integrated into insecticides against crop-destroying pests. Israeli researchers have also shown that Atrax venom systematically induces prolonged penile erections. A Viagra substitute is thus under investigation. The venom acts on the nervous system, unlike Viagra, which induces vascular dilatation. In the near future, it may become possible to use a peptide, that is, a group of proteins from the venom, for therapeutic purposes. In the USA, researchers have also shown that tarantula venom has positive qualities.
We think that this natural peptide derived from spider venom can be used as therapy for a variety of diseases associated with mechanical defects. These include muscular dystrophy, cardiac arrhythmias, incontinence, and possibly brain tumors.
Dr. Sachs, an American researcher, has already succeeded in reproducing this peptide, code MTX4, found in the venom of the tarantula. This peptide appears to be particularly effective in controlling heart rhythm.
Okay, Tom, here it comes. I'm going to send you some MTX4, and we're going to see what happens. Tom, look at this thing. This is a sick muscle cell. It should just be lying there quietly, but it's not. This is a dystrophic muscle cell, and it shouldn't be doing this. I think we can block this with the spider peptide.
Used in humans, this peptide could immobilize the cells responsible for deregulating the heart muscle. Its principle of action: to block the cells that cause an uncontrolled increase in contractions without affecting the cells associated with normal rhythm. With infinite care, Dr. Sachs manipulates the synthetic peptide, which is priced at over $2,000 for 1 milligram. You could say that tarantulas are dear to his heart.
Take it easy. Relax.
However, the future of spider venom may also lie in its action on the brain. In brain tumors, we know that the presence of cancer cells induces other cells to release chemicals that promote tumor growth. It would be beneficial then to be able to block them.
Rosie. Rosie is our pet tarantula. She's over 30 years old, and she serves as our laboratory mascot. We actually haven't taken venom from her because she's too much of a friend. But we take venom, we start out with venom from her relatives.
If spiders are becoming our friends, thanks to the positive qualities of their venom, what about bee venom?
Oh, ooh, that definitely hurts. Oh, yes. Ooh.
This medicine has a name today, bee therapy, a method that goes back to ancient times. Bee therapists sting their patients at the acupuncture points. The therapeutic indications are primarily rheumatism, arthritis, and multiple sclerosis.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it.
That's where you want it, huh?
No! Oh, I think that's an atomic bee.
Can you feel that?
Mm-hmm. No, I just didn't sit here and cry. I can definitely feel it.
After each session, the bee therapist has the patient sign a discharge in the event of allergy. 60,000 people in America indulge in bee therapy regularly at specialist practitioners and even within the family.
I am a woman, 53 years old, who has recently been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I saw on your website that you have written a book called How Well Are You Willing to Be? And I was wondering if bees might be able to help me.
Pat Wagner has become herself and escaped the fatal outcome predicted by her doctor for her multiple sclerosis. Pat has become a believer and a bee therapist. She reminds us that the bee is cited nearly 30 times in the Bible.
Many times I have stung people that have come in with canes or crutches or something due to various problems with the legs. And to have them come back in after they've left in a hurried manner, and I'm concerned with what's wrong, and I said, what's happening? They say, I left my cane or I left my crutch. Where is it? I can't find it. And I find it humorous that they've gone out of here without something that they couldn't come in the house without. It's a miracle. It's wonderful.
In France, Professor Bernard Descott is also using a miraculous therapy, bandaging wounds with honey for healing scars.
I believe that what is crucial is to make sure the honey penetrates deeply into all the tiny cracks of the wound to avoid any pulling occurring.
Honey is used for healing difficult wounds. Its advantage is that the enzymes in honey produce just the required amount of hydrogen peroxide to disinfect the wound, while maintaining a humid environment that encourages cell regeneration.
There are some amusing stories on honey-based dressings, such as a medical consultant who refused claims for such dressings on the pretext that they contained honey. Even though it's 15 euros cheaper than most healing products, and above all, allows you to get back to work twice as quickly.
In Australia and New Zealand, honey is widely used in hospitals. In addition, numerous clinical trials have shown that dressings with honey get rid of fearsome flesh-eating bacteria rapidly.
With this pot of honey, that's to say for less than €1, we can treat 2 or 3 patients and achieve astonishing results on healing, as I'm going to show you. You see in this sequence the change in the wound, which ends up fully healed in less than 20 days. Indeed, there's a very, very big change. Even though it remains very detached, I find that there it's good. At the pharmaceutical level, opposition remains determined, which one can understand, because these companies have every interest in making sure honey is kept out of healing.
Bees also use propolis harvested on certain trees as a health defense. When they kill an intruder, insect or rodent that they cannot move, they then proceed to cover it with this antibacterial. For the moment in France, the choice of honey is still made in a tailored fashion.
My worry is this: will it always be so soft?
If you keep it at around 18 degrees, there's no problem.
Do you think this honey spreads easily?
Yes, absolutely.
For a long time, honey has been used in India as an antiseptic. Every day, numerous patients queue up for a consultation with Dr. Gokulan, ophthalmology surgeon at the Medical College of Rangaraya in India. The fact of finding yourself with lotus honey in your eye may seem strange, if not unpleasant. However, in Ayurveda, the ancient medical science, honey was already known for treating illness in eyes and other parts of the body.
We have a method of treatment where we use a decoction added with 1/4 of honey. This entire quantity is ingested to the rectum, and after a certain period of time, this is evacuated naturally.
Dr. Gokulan is planning to evaluate these ancient methods and test some new honey.
It's very, very, very tasty. It's rather very sweet and having little sour. Yeah, this is tasting just like what we have felt about the honey.
Okay.
Very sweet.
Yeah.
Dr. Gokulan is researching other qualities in honey in order to find new anti-inflammatory and antibacterial properties. But unfortunately, the majority of beekeepers only produce lotus honey, the most widespread medical nectar. Dr. Gokulan has decided to go into the jungle to look for wild swarms who use other flowers to create their honey. For him, the bee is a flying pharmacy. Wild swarms are always difficult to locate, and sometimes luck strikes there where you least expect it. Thanking Mother Nature and the bees has become a daily ritual for Dr. Gokulan.
Can you see my eyes? Very large eyes. Okay. Yeah.
No. You C N E T D D N D D.
After this examination, now we are going to have a treatment, very excellent treatment with honey. You know, you have seen honey? You love honey, very good.
This little girl will no doubt be part of the 60% success rate achieved by Dr. Gokulan thanks to honey, and at the lowest price in a country where modern medicine is too expensive. If it might seem surprising to put honey in your eye, nobody would dream of putting a fly there. And however, in Mexico, doctor flies are all the rage. Like many insects, their bodies are covered with bactericidal substances. Doctor flies do the trick.
Igualmente pedimos por todas nuestras familias y pues así sea.
If flies help witch doctors, they are also good tools for surgeons. Some larvae only attack the dead tissue in wounds. John Church is called the Maggot Man.
I had this extraordinary experience some years ago when a man drove himself off the motorway, went through the windscreen, and had terrible head and chest injuries, lay for 3 days in the open, and then the police brought him into the hospital, and to the nurse's horror and disgust, his wounds were full of maggots. But when I arrived, I noted that his wounds were clean and healthy looking, so much so that we didn't actually have to take him to the operating theatre. And that's how my interest was aroused and how I've eventually become known as the Maggot Man.
To obtain sterile larvae, a top-secret process was employed by the only fly stock farm in the world in Wales. For John, surgery requires too many people. A single female fly produces enough maggots to treat 5 patients, and they go on working 24 hours a day. His care kit comprises 500 sterile larvae and only costs €107. But people find maggot therapy disgusting, and it usually is only used when surgery or antibiotics fail.
Hello, John. I see you're just having the maggots put in the wound.
Yes.
Have you had these before in this way?
No.
No. Well, as you see, there they are, little ones, and you can see them wandering around in the wound, and they'll already be starting to feed on that yellowish tissue. John, it's now some months since this wound healed. How is it?
Fine.
If I examine it like this, is it tender?
No.
It hasn't been infected?
No.
Let's have you standing up for a moment. Can you come up on your toes? Yeah, down again. That's comfortable?
Yes, yes.
Excellent. John, this is the picture where the maggots are under the gangrenous skin. Could you feel them?
Yes, yes, I can feel them wriggling about.
Wriggling about or tickling?
Yes, yes.
And here is the time when the gangrenous skin has gone, but there's still some yellow tissue, and that was also eaten by the next lot of maggots, is that right?
Yes.
And after that it went on to heal fully.
Yes, yes.
How does it feel now?
Fine.
Yes.
No trouble at all.
Excellent.
Really amazed.
Today, 300 treatment centres have opened in England, and over 1,500 people have already been treated by maggot therapy. In Central Africa, they practice termite therapy. The preparation consists of taking living soldier termites from a termite hill and crushing their heads to obtain a healing paste. Bernard Indunazi tries to convince the father that this potion will cure his daughter's ulcer. Dad remains skeptical. As in most pygmy villages, modern medicine is non-existent. As an alternative, crushed Macrothermus soldier termites are directly applied to the wound. For Ndunazi, termites are a family business.
All
that I know, I learned from my father. Our tribe, the Sumas, have cured ulcers with termites for many generations. It only stopped when the missionaries arrived and tried to end our initiation rites. Now, I've started to use this technique again. And I'm trying to spread the word so people who don't have access to antibiotics can care for themselves using this technique instead.
Bernard Ndunazi is travelling all over the Central African Republic to train people in his methods. It is probably the secretions from glands and the chitin in the soldier termites' armoured heads that make these cures. Chitin has remarkable bactericidal properties and is also non-toxic and biodegradable. Soldier termites are just horn shields with oversized pairs of clipper shears. This armament is so heavy and cumbersome that they have to be beak-fed by worker termites. The panoply of the cutting weapons is varied, but some termites prefer chemical warfare. In fact, they have developed guns and fire a sticky liquid which paralyzes the enemy through this tube. The properties of this liquid could also find applications in medicine. Bernard Nidonazzi is proud of his success stories, in particular a Japanese couple treated for persistent ulcers and Papa Thomas's termite miracle.
This man has only been treated with termites. He had had an ulcer for over a year, but at the hospital they could do nothing more for him because it was infested with maggots.
Maggots? That's serious. Why was that?
Because there was nobody to clean the ulcer, so they sent him home to die in his village.
Central African Republic television covered the event. Everyone wanted to see Thomas, who had had a miracle cure with termites.
This photograph shows the ulcer after 28 days of treatment.
You remember what it was like?
Oh yes, it's almost a ghost story, because people who come back from the dead are ghosts, aren't they? And Thomas was really far gone.
Today is a grand day for Bernard. He has been invited to the presidential palace to give a conference on the termite healers.
Hello, Dr. Donoval. I'm here for the ceremony.
Well, hello, Doctor.
The ambassadors and the UN and WHO delegates were convened for the presentation.
This recent work on termites has revealed their therapeutic virtues.
I met the Zandes in Bakuma. They make termite paste, simple food paste that you can keep for years and years without it going moldy.
Papa Thomas owes his life to the termites, and the proof is convincing. Bernard hopes to use this clinical success to market termite pie and other handy bits of mandibles on a large scale. This woman, who looks more like a termite mound, has painful joints. For traditional healers of the Ivory Coast, termite earth is an excellent orthopedic plaster and also heals mumps and chickenpox as long as it's applied regularly. Some even use it to help with diagnoses. They tell a patient to urinate on the mound. If the termites rush up to drink the urine, the patient has got diabetes. Next. Healing with termites seems like a real job, but what about ants? These Australian ants have therapeutic qualities like termites do. The problem is getting near them because their sting is very painful. Through working with these very aggressive ants, Craig Angus has become allergic to their pheromones, resulting in sneezing fits. He's dressed in his commando gear to avoid any contact with them. Craig Angus is the assistant of Professor Andrew Beattie. They work on the antibiotic properties of ants. Craig has mastered the art of ant bondage. The objective is to extract, without killing the ant, an antiseptic substance contained in its glands. The quantity is minute, but enough to give the ant good immunity against germs. Concentrating hard, Craig checks his hold once again, while the ant tries to sting him. In this box, all the bacteria around the 2 drops of ant antibiotic have been eliminated.
Aboriginal Australians understood the antibiotic properties of ants. They would throw a cloth onto an ant nest until it was covered in ants, and then shake them off, did the antibiotic properties of ants. They would throw a cloth onto an ant nest until it was covered in ants, and then shake them off, and then bind a wound with the cloth. It must have been impregnated with antibiotics because it had immediate healing properties.
Man only discovered antibiotics 60 years ago, whereas ants have been using them for 60 million years.
The conventional use of antibiotics is causing resistance on the part of the bacteria that cause human diseases worldwide. New sources of antibiotics have to be found as quickly as possible. We believe that our research into antibiotics produced by ants and other insects will provide insights into new ways of fighting human disease.
Mushroom-growing ants also cultivate antibiotics. An electron microscope reveals a bacterial mousse attached to their backs that protects them from the risk of infection. These antibiotics are manufactured in underground chambers from chewed leaves that turn into a substratum in which the fungus grows and produces food and medicines for the colony. The mushroom-growing ants effortlessly cut up leaves with their powerful jaws. They select a wide range of vegetation as they regularly change antibiotics, as if subconsciously aware that pathogenic germs mutate. Throughout history, ants have been genuine walking and chewing pharmacists. In the Middle Ages in Europe, people used their formic acid to preserve animal corpses and to clean certain wounds. More recently in Africa, they were used as surgical staples to close cuts. They bit into the flesh in such a way that the sides of the wound closed. Once the jaws closed, the ant's body was cut off, leaving just the insect staple. Whereas insects were once used as real tools, today in modern medicine, they're being used as living syringes and for diagnosis.
Which one?
Take the black one, it's fastest.
The method of using fleas as living syringes for transmitting vaccines was invented by the French bioespace team led by Elizabeth. They have been vaccinating wild rabbits against myxomatosis for several years already.
Bring me the first rabbit to come out so we can collect the fleas.
Okay.
Ferrets are just the thing to frighten the rabbits out of their holes in this heath, where a few weeks before Elizabeth had released a batch of vaccinating fleas.
There he is.
Hoppity hop. Catch it, Robert. Let go. Look, you can see them.
Well, they're off.
So many of them.
Elizabeth collects the fleas so she can check if the fleas on the rabbits are her special vaccinating variety. So she can identify them, she marked them all with a fluorescent yellow tag when they were released 3 weeks ago. The vaccine they contain was transmitted to the rabbits by their buccal organs whenever they fed.
Fleas will always be parasites. It's part of their genetic makeup and can't be changed. But we can change their image. Instead of being pests, we can make them do good.
A blood sample shows at once if the fleas have given the rabbits immunity to myxomatosis. Elizabeth uses a UV radiation sensor to detect the yellow fluo traces of the vaccinating fleas. In the virus laboratory, a high-security P3 laboratory, mosquitoes are used as diagnostic tools. Dr. Vazay's team uses them when it's impossible to determine whether a disease is viral or bacterial in origin. Thus, the mosquito donates its body to science. Dr. Vazay injects strains of diseases she cannot identify into the digestive tracts of mosquitoes. These strains multiply quickly in their bodies, making identification possible. Virus amplification is one of the first positive uses of mosquitoes. Another use envisaged is the production of anticoagulants. Tomorrow, maybe mosquitoes will be used as living syringes in the same way as fleas are already used now, but instead to vaccinate human beings. While insects are good medical tools, eating them is also in fashion. We drink their venom, eat their jaws, and swallow down the tiniest of them. Mrs. Huang raises tarantulas for Chinese medicine and sells them dried or in wine.
At first, my spiders lived in my house. One day, some neighbors who were visiting me came face to face with one of them. And they said, "Aren't they dangerous?" And I replied, "No, they're good for our health."
Mrs. Wang's spiders are recommended for rheumatism. The Chinese have not waited for modern science to tell them that diluted spider venom can be used to treat all sorts of ills.
Taste it. Taste it. Can you tell what it is? No. What is it? Spiders. It's spider wine. Oh, really?
Apparently her spider wine is effective, since she receives many orders for it from all over China. Some of her patients use it for toothache, kidney problems, paralysis, and, with the addition of dates, to treat inflammation. Every week, Mrs. Huang makes deliveries to the traditional pharmacies that buy her spiders in wine or dried form.
Look, there are even more nests here. This one must be big.
Yesterday we found quite a few.
There's sure to be a big spider in this one. The entrance is really wide.
Mrs. Huang is happy with her catch.
Oh, damn, it bit me.
Mrs. Huang has been bitten more than 20 times. One day she had to be hospitalized, but she has never given up.
When I was younger, I was afraid of spiders, but one day I lost my job, so I started breeding them. At first, I looked for them in the mountains, but there were fewer and fewer. That's why I started a spider farm. Now I have 50,000 of them.
The finest specimens gathered in the mountains are destined for breeding. The others will be drowned in the elixir wine to conserve, according to Mrs. Huang, all their potential energy. The elixir can also be drunk for its aphrodisiac properties. Each month, Mrs. Huang takes the bus with her frightening load of tarantulas. Goal? To deliver fresh venom to the Medical Institute for its pharmacopoeia. In the land of Mao, ants fall from the skies. These weaver ants are not only very tasty and crunchy, they are considered by the Chinese as a true panacea for one's health. Humans are not the only ones to like them. To protect themselves from predators, the ants weave their nests out of leaves in the trees. Watch out! These ant hunters are professionals. They are collecting them today to prepare their famous elixir. According to traditional Chinese medicine, the weaver ants can increase the appetite of persons suffering from cancer, can reduce pain and even aging in men. They are prescribed for everything: asthma, chronic hepatitis, poor blood circulation.
Taste this. It's ant wine. It's good for you. Try some. 3 times a day, 1 glass at a time.
For Mr. Lee, ants are black gold. He has made a fortune out of them. Today he has to go to the harvesters to select the best aromas.
Okay.
These 2 bags are good.
Yes, they're the same. A little more.
The Chinese are so taken with eating medicinal ants that Mr. Lee now has to obtain supplies from across the whole province, by bicycle, by boat and on foot, to keep his factory supplied. Sorting ants is still done by the use of delicate hands, but Mr. Lee uses industrial pharmaceutical machinery to convert them into powder or capsules.
The ant is the strongest animal, according to scientists, pulling 400 times its own weight, compared to 4 times for the elephant. You must eat ants to increase your strength. In summer, the weaver ant lives in trees, and in winter in damp soil, without ever contracting rheumatism. Ants are great against rheumatism.
If Mr. Lee produces 70 tons of ant powder per year, his employees, too, work like ants. It is estimated that the sale of these insects by all the producers earns about $100 million per year. Some even pay for television adverts.
Eat ants, it's good for your health.
But who would have thought to eat lice? This man is a homeopath. He heals some illnesses with human lice. If the preparation of the drug is traditional, the ingredients may not be. But lice are not the only insects he uses in his potions. Ants, fleas, and cockroaches are more common. Brazil has been using homeopathic medicine since the 17th century, but the use of Pediculus capitis, hair lice, in pills is rare. Pediculus capitis is used to care for psychological disorders affecting behavior, by analogy with the man-lice relationship. Nothing to do with the lice formerly used in France to cure jaundice. In bygone times, sufferers ate a slice of bread buttered with 3 lice.
To prepare the Pediculus capitis drug, take distilled water, 70% alcohol, 20% alcohol, lactose, and of course, the lice.
But why be surprised by the consumption of lice? We swallow pollen, don't we?
Very good. Really. Pollen from aromatic fruit trees, a flowering orchard. Very, very good pollen. Pass me this one. Ah, that's poppy. Ooh, this is fiendish.
This pollen taster, Mr. Percy Dessert, left his career as an agronomist to devote his tongue to the curative properties of fresh pollen collected in beehives.
1 kilo 8. I had a very bad pulmonary problem which left me in a state of total fatigue, and it was while I was in this state that I ate some pollen that came from my beehives, and this pollen got me back into extraordinary good shape. Every time I used to stop taking it, I'd be overtaken again by fatigue. This is what gave me the idea of starting a fresh pollen business.
Pollen is principally recommended for prostate and fatigue problems. It possesses 5 times more proteins than a steak, while containing precious trace elements, minerals, and numerous vitamins. Bees collect it with their legs and on the down that covers their bodies. They store it in specially designed pouches on their back legs, which would be the equivalent to man of carrying 2 25-kilo suitcases. Pollen is used as food for the larvae. It is richer in protein than the honey used by the adults, and it is also an excellent antibacterial. The pollen's virtues are perfectly preserved thanks to its very strong outer shell. Patrice Percy Dessert is a happy man. These laboratory tests are categoric. Upon contact with fresh pollen, bacteria multiply little or not at all. If pollen contains more proteins than a steak, who would imagine that the same might be true of flies? Julieta is a doctor and an insectivore. She is fighting for the recognition of the nutritive value of cooked flies, and she doesn't hesitate to eat them in biscuits or in a cornet. In Mexico alone, there are over 300 species of edible insects. Some dishes, a heritage from pre-Columbian times, are prepared from fly larvae, grilled in sauce or served as a salad.
Los antiguos mexicanos consumían estas
Ancient
moscas porque les
Mexicans ate
gustaban.
aquatic flies for their taste.
Desgraciadamente, en la
But
actualidad,
today,
los patrones
these culinary
alimentarios
habits have
se
been
están
replaced by
orientando hacia una
American-style
comida
cuisine.
tipo americano. Pero deben de saber
That's
que
a
estas
pity,
moscas tienen
as these flies
50% más de
50% more
proteínas
protein
y
than a
una
hamburger.
digestibilidad 5 a
They're
6
5 or
veces
6 times
superior
easier to
que las que hay.
digest.
Además,
And
son
they're
deliciosas.
delicious.
Yo estoy tratando de
I
demostrar
believe
por esta
that
razón
flies and
que los
insects are
insectos
the
pueden
answer
ser
to
una
world
solución
famine.
para combatir el hambre en el mundo.
But people seem somewhat reticent, even if flies were already seen as a solution in the written records of pre-Columbian civilizations. According to some experts, a large part of the population will be unable to feed itself in 30 years. Paradoxically, insects abound around us and represent an unlimited reservoir of protein to counter malnutrition. Fishing for aquatic flies still happens in Mexico. This Mexican lake is now dried up, and Pedro can only fish in the few channels that remain. But he still harvests enough to keep a family of 12 children alive. If the flies are less common in the little channels, they're abundant in the salty lakes. Aquatic flies are found in their millions on Lake Mono in the USA, very close to the Mexican frontier. They have abundant algae there to feed on, and very few predators. At the end of the 19th century, the Cutzadica Indians harvested them in sufficient numbers to be able to fill several sacks. They appreciated their nutritive qualities and their taste. The first settlers called them the fly eaters. Like the Cutzadica Indians, Pedro and his wife cook them in fly biscuits, which they sell at market. To preserve them, the flies are first dried out, then crushed finely with a mortar. The powder obtained is mixed with eggs and rolled to obtain the shape which, for houseflies at least, looks rather like the food they prefer. As for Julieta, she verifies the nutritive qualities of each of her dishes scientifically. She is convinced that a ratatouille made with maggots is as good as fresh cream. To convince waverers, Julieta recently published a book of extremely wide-ranging recipes. Good health and bon appetit!